abaji temukuma budde.
And we have to keep the roots, we have to maintain
the African culture. You don't have to disappoint.
Hey, we don't have to lose, we don't have to lose the roots. We have to maintain.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad
How have you been?
I've been good. Mujebale. My name is Bani Kibuka, and welcome to another episode of the Ugandan Ball Talk Show. I'm so happy to have you and to have you on my podcast. It's such a small world that I didn't know you like a month ago. Like you didn't know me a month ago, but somehow we got connected, and just to hear what you've been able to do, actually to read what you've been able to do for whatever good reasons. I like people who have a heart of caring about other people, like especially people like us who have been blessed to come to the United States,
Absolutely.
Like not just coming to the United States and just say, okay, we're here, we're going to just live our lives, but have a heart to care about the other people back home, which I'm going to talk to you about it later in the podcast. But before we go into that, Joel, welcome to my podcast. And how are you doing, man?
Thank you so much, man. I am very, very excited to be here, and thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well. Yeah. It's a good morning so far.
How is the weather in Wisconsin?
I'm not the exact, can I say, degrees, I would say, but it's actually colder than yesterday. I can quickly check. Why not?
Okay.
It's also threatening to, can I say, to snow. And so I'm not a big fan of snow, to be honest. So I'm really hoping that it doesn't. But today is a little bit, can I say, colder. It's -6 degrees Celsius, and it's
-6. Okay.
Yes, and then 22 degrees Fahrenheit right now. And then it's threatening to sort of snow.
That's crazy. I woke up this morning, it was the first day of spring just the other day. And I woke up this morning, opened my window, and I looked at snow on the ground. I'm usually happy when I wake up, but when I saw that, I just started being sad. I don't like snow. I'm just like you.
That's the same. I like can I say, when it snows for the first time, like the first week of snow, I think it's beautiful outside.
Yeah.
But anything beyond the first week, to me, it's just like it breaks my mind off. I just can't deal with it, And unfortunately, snow here goes for months,
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
talking about a week, Yeah.
Yeah. And like most Americans, especially people who were born here, can never relate to what we're talking about because we're never used to this kind of thing. And most people at my workplace laugh at me when it gets cold.
I think for me, the mind-blowing part is when people say we love snow or winter is our favorite season. Okay. And I'm like, are you trying to just mess up with my mind? What are you talking about? And people are genuine. People love winter and snow. And I think I appreciate the diversity, but I just can't relate.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Whenever I host people on my podcast, I make interview questions. But for you, I just wanted us to have a freestyle conversation. I didn't plan about talking about snow, but I like that we share about that because it's something both of us kind of have the same, because we're both from Uganda, moved to America, kind of our stories and our dislikes and likes might be the same. So that's how I want to roll with this. But before we go deeper in this podcast, tell us your name, because I call you Joe, but some of my listeners might not know your name.
Yeah. So by the way, I like the style of just going off. Can I say the conversation? Because I'm not good at responding at questions. So even if you come up with a question, I'll be answering my own thing. So thank you.
Yeah.
But for introduction, my name is Joel Baraka. That's my full name. And I'm currently studying at the University of Wisconsin, Madison, here in the US.
Okay. So actually, that's how I got to know you. My cousin Caleb from Kenya, he happens to go to the same school where you go. And I think when he met you, he's like, Bunny, you need to meet this guy. He's from Uganda and he does a lot of things. The way he talked to you about the way he talked to about you to me was like, you need to meet this guy. I need to connect you to this guy. I was like, yeah, connect me. And the day he gave me your phone number, I reached out to you and we had a little conversation. But I felt like I wanted to have a deeper conversation with you and just following your works. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you've done, what you've achieved. Like I said in the beginning, about the things you do. I like people who are selfless, like they care about other people before they care about themselves. So what's your background like? So I know I've already mentioned you're from Uganda. Like, what's your background like from Uganda and here?
Yeah, so actually, I think it was yesterday. My roommate is from Cameroon, and
Okay.
I think for the whole of this time, we've been living together for a year, and I think he thought I'm Ugandan. And probably also thinking I'm Ugandan, but I'm actually not Ugandan. I guess half I'm Ugandan, but I'm originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, so I'm a Congolese by
Okay.
nationality. But I grew up in Uganda. Like for you who is from Uganda and a person from the African continent would understand that
Mhm.
DRC is one of the African countries that has faced, can I say, the unfortunate part of having a lot of natural resources, but they've sort of turned to be a little bit, can I say, brought more negative side than the positive, I would say. So I moved to Uganda when I was about 1 year old. So there was a conflict, a civil war in 1997, and then my family moved to Uganda. And actually, since then, I've lived in Uganda. So I'm 24 years old, and for the entire time, I've lived in Uganda. And
Mhm.
that's why I think most of the time when I converse with people, I sometimes never bring up like being a Congolese, and they
Yeah.
assume I'm Ugandan. And
Yeah.
so I think it was this week when like my roommate, we were talking, and then I don't know how it came about, and he was like, "Wait, you're not Ugandan?" I was like, "No, I'm not Ugandan, but I'm also Ugandan."
Right.
But that's a little bit of my background. So I grew up as a Congolese in Uganda, if I would put it that way. Yeah,
Okay. That's so I mean you grew up most of your life in Uganda. So Uganda, you can call Uganda home. Like I mean,
absolutely.
even
It's
though
it's home.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. Do you have any siblings? Any and where they're
Yeah.
at?
So I have five siblings. We are six in the family. Born nine. African families we are big. Born nine, and then three passed
Yeah.
away, and then now we are six.
Uh-huh.
And I'm actually the last born. Our firstborn is actually in DRC. When we came to Uganda, we came with him, but he didn't.
Mhm.
I guess he didn't enjoy life, or
Yeah.
it didn't fit. And then he was like, "I'm going back to DRC. If it means, I guess, just like living, sometimes like learning, or and then coming back, I'll do that." So
Mhm.
he just like decided to go back to DRC, and he's been living there, I think, since 2004, 2005.
Okay.
And then the second born, I guess the second eldest born is in Uganda. Still lives
Mhm.
in Uganda right now. And then the one who follows is my brother. He lives in Utah, Salt Lake City. I actually spent last week, I guess the 2 weeks in Utah, and I was with him and the family. He has three kids now. And then the one who follows is in New York, Rochester.
Okay.
And then the one who follows, who I now follow, my sister, lives in Georgia, Atlanta.
Okay.
And then I'm in Wisconsin. So we're sort of a little bit scattered.
Mhm.
There's a fun fact about my family. We've never, all of us, maybe like, unless like if it happened in 1997 before I was like mature, but we've never
Yeah.
like sat together as a family
Wow.
and seen mom, dad together at the same time. We see each other once in a while, but one or two of us are not there, or two of the other people are not there like that. But we get to see each other. But I've never seen like my family together in one place. Unless if it happened, probably it happened like by then before I was like mature. But
Wow.
since then I've never seen yeah, it's kind of
The
insane. Yeah.
there isn't a lot of things that touch my heart, but just thinking about that, like uh thinking about it right now, like you've never had your family like all together, but it's crazy. Yeah, that's I was gonna say you have your family all over the place, like New York is, I mean, it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, but like getting to visit like Utah, New York, I like road trips. So like I have family in Durham, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So that just actually 3 weeks ago, I went down there to visit them and see how they're doing. So I love road trips to go visit family. I have an aunt in Louisiana.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
once in a while we'll go and visit. So but yeah, that's pretty cool to get to know your family. And you were actually talking, and I hosted a guy, and I met him the same way I met you. I think somebody connected me to him. He was
Mm.
born in DRC, but they moved to Uganda as refugees. Maybe similar story to you, but then they got citizenship in Norway, so
Oh, I
he's
see.
in Norway now. I hosted him on the
I might have listened to the story
yeah.
on your
You
show for
should
that guy.
check it out. Elias Usindi. That's the guy that yeah
Okay.
I hosted him on the podcast. I'll share with you the link of that. But just his story too, like was touching. So how then do you switch from Uganda then to Madison, Wisconsin?
Yeah, that's a good one. So it all has to do with my education background and school because that's how I anyway got here. So when I was going to school, so in Uganda, I also grew up in the village in it's actually a refugee camp in Uganda. It's called Kyangwari Refugee Camp. It's in Western Uganda, and specifically in Hoima district. If you've heard of Hoima, it's that side of Kivoga and then
Mhm.
Hoima.
Yeah, I've been there.
So I did start like primary school in Kyangwari in the refugee camp, and then when I finished primary school, I had like an opportunity. It was like a scholarship to go and study in the nearby town, Hoima, which is getting closer, I guess, to Kampala. And then I did finish my senior four from there. I got sort of good grades, and then there was this opportunity to apply for A level. So like I guess like high school,
Yeah.
senior five and senior six. Um, and I did apply. The school is called African Leadership Academy. I don't know if you've heard of ALA.
I don't think so.
Oh, check it out, man.
Is it in Hoima?
No, this is now in
Hmm.
South Africa for high
Okay.
school. I did
Okay.
study in
South
South Africa.
Africa? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, there's a number right now of Ugandan students who have gone to ALA. It's called African Leadership Academy, abbreviated as ALA.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's then when I really came to learn a lot about opportunities in the US. And like before then, it was a lot of inspiration from my siblings because like I have two of my siblings who came specifically to study in the US. And so seeing them going to the US to study, it is sort of really inspired me. So I still had this dream of, can I say, coming to the US or desire or aspiration of coming to study in the US. But specifically in Madison, it happened during one of the visits by admission. So I had already gotten in Michigan State on MasterCard scholarship. But then by then I was still trying to look, can I like still apply to universities like Duke or UC Berkeley? They were still having MasterCard, and I thought they were a little bit more competitive schools. But then during one of the sessions, I attended a session that was by UW Madison, the University of Wisconsin Madison. And when I got there, I had no idea because I didn't know about Wisconsin as a state. I didn't know about Madison as a city and the university. But when they talked about it, it sounded interesting. And then I think the kicker was that one of the admissions from ALA, my high school, had come to UW. So he was now a UW alumni. And I would say he was a good friend of mine. And he was in the room as well. And after the admissions talk, they gave him a chance to talk. And then he talked about the university went to UW Madison. And it really sounded intriguing. And then I asked if I could chat with him over the next couple weeks, of which he gave me his time. And he just like made me fall in love with UW Madison. But also when I checked like the engineering program I wanted to do, they had a great engineering program. And there was also a new scholarship at the university. And so all those things, sort of a good university, having a scholarship, I was like, let me apply to this university. And when I applied, when I got in, I was like, yeah, I'm going.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to come and see the university, but I
Yeah.
guess I was like, it's good enough for me to decide to go. Yeah.
That's crazy, bro. I was listening to your story. Whenever I host people and I ask them questions, I like to just keep quiet and just let you talk. And like when you were talking, it just reminded some of them reminded me of myself, like my story, how I came to the United States, and you talking about your journey and what you wanted to do, and like an engineer, like man, kudos for you. Um, most
Thanks.
people, most people do not feel it, do not relate to your background, like what you went through to be where you are. Especially the people who are in the US, they will see you in an engineering school, like, but they don't know who Baraka was like in 98 to how your life was, like, but like seeing you here talking about engineering, talking about the success you've had going to South Africa, it's just a blessing, man. And I'm glad you shared that because it touched me. I have quite a similar story how I came to the United States, and I wanted to do aviation.
Right,
I wanted
right.
to fly airplanes. I wanted to work on airplanes, and I've shared this story before, and probably most of my listeners, I think, are tired of listening to it every time I host somebody and talks about their lives.
Right.
But but yeah, it's I got a actually for me I didn't get a scholarship, but my uncle had studied in Louisiana
I
in
see.
Tulane University. So he connected. Actually, at the beginning, he wanted me to go to South Africa. There was a school, aviation school in South Africa that he wanted me to go to, but he was like, "No, I think US has better opportunities than South Africa."
Right.
Which I mean, South Africa is good, but then US will be better.
Mm, mm.
So then he connected me to come to the US, and I came over to the US, and just life started. And today I'm thankful that I'm doing something that I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And hearing your story of how you ended up coming to the US, I know maybe your upbringing was not the best, but how to see how you walk through life to get to where you are. And that's why I want to bring these stories like yours to inspire a child in Uganda who is listening to us right now, that your background might not matter, but your determination and hard work will get you where you go.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's the kick, and not to cut you short. I think so. I feel like I've always been this kid who is, I don't know how to put it, but like I just like I don't care about how. I don't think so much about how. It's just like what do I want to do and why? Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
guess if I can put
Mm-hmm.
it like that. And to me, like when I was growing up, like seeing my siblings like going to the US, I was like, yeah, I also want to go. How? I didn't know, but I just want to go. And why? It will give me better opportunities and it will be really great. I remember when I was in secondary school in Hoima. Hoima is a small town, and I would say it's just another but out of villages. And I would tell my friends, I'm like, I have some like my siblings have been able to go to the US. You know, of course, like there's a lot of things you have to do that. And I'll tell them I really also want to go to the US, and they'll be like, "You're crazy." And of course, some of the kids like they know I'm come from a refugee camp. They sort of will make fun of it, not like bullying me or anything, but they'll
Okay.
make fun of it. And most of them were friends, and they'll think I'm
Is that
crazy.
back in Uganda or here
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
that's back in Uganda.
okay.
So, like, yeah, some of my friends will make fun of, can I say, of me, of, oh, you think you go to the US, you know how many people have thought about that, and it's impossible. And I think some of the reasons were valid, to be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah.
exactly how, but I'll tell them, I just want to go, and I think I will. And it's just like this idea of, can I say, manifesting, if I come to like jump ahead, I think it's powerful, and then being determined to make sure that I guess I get to where you want to go. I think it becomes very powerful, like being able to manifest something and then being determined to do it. The how, sometimes you cannot figure out the how immediately, but I
That's
think
right.
having that, can I say, a determination and manifestation, I think it becomes really powerful.
That is right. And when you said your friends laughing at you, I remember when No, I was in senior six, my last year
Mm.
of high school. Our teacher walked around the class asking, "What do you want to do after senior six? What do you want to do after senior six?" Asking everybody. When he came to me, I told him, "I want to fly airplanes. Like I want to fly
Yeah,
airplanes. I want to work as a mechanic."
I see a class going
My
wild.
my class went
You can.
wild. They laughed. They're like, "Look at this kid. Uganda doesn't even have an airplane," because by that time
No,
we didn't have an
they
airplane.
asked you, does your dad have a bicycle? No. Does your dad drive? And then it's like, how do you come from a bicycle? Go ahead. Yeah, but I can relate. I know
Yeah.
what it is
So
in the Ugandan
so
schools.
yeah, I was just relating to what you said. Like my friends laughed at me, and today I still have some of those friends who's like, "Bunny, you proved us wrong. You proved." I didn't know how, like you just said,
Yes, yes,
but I
yes.
knew that's what I want to do. Like I don't know what's gonna happen, but that's what I want to do,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it works just like that. And to look back and see the journey, and that's why I wanted to have a podcast like this to just listen. Like I enjoy listening to your story. I want to hear about some other person's story journey, which yours sounds similar to what and I'm sure most of the Ugandans who are here through the same journey we're here might have the same thing. But the other thing that I applaud about you and I want us to talk about is like even you after coming to the United States, your heart, and I mentioned this at the beginning, your heart was still at the kids back in the refugee camp. I was following your social media, whatever you were trying to do, and you have one of the websites, and the listeners can go to your Instagram page. He uses Joe Baraka, so you can go look it up. There's a link above his profile, and that leads you to a website. And that's what I want to talk about right now, like some of the good works you've done and you're still doing. I'm assuming My Home Stars progress. But first, tell me about like why did you pick My Home Stars and what does that mean to you?
Wow. Actually, I think I've had like a few podcasts so far, and I don't think anyone has asked me that question, why my home stars. So let's go. Let's go into it. So my home stars is actually a name that has always been special to me, and one of the things actually when I came up with the name, I by then I was working by myself. When I first like started the social enterprise, my home stars. So I didn't have like to consult anyone like on my team or anything. And when I started bringing people on the team, I was a bit, can I say, I was sort of worried that someone would say, no, we need to change the name, not my home stars. But fortunately, everyone has sort of loved the name.
Yeah.
But anyway, why my home stars? So I've always had this idea that any kid out there really has the potential to, if the kid has a dream, like by the time we're in primary school in Uganda, teachers have this, can I say, habit of asking us, what do you want to do? And no kid says, I want to be a farmer or I want to be a water collector or a water seller and things of that kind, or a street kid or these people who hawkers or anything. All the kids have these big ambitions of becoming doctors, aviation experts, engineers, and all these good things that we need in the community. But somehow, somewhere, their dreams get shattered. And so for me, I've always had this, can I say, belief that kids have the potential to become stars at all these big dreams that they have. Also understand that they have a big, can I say, admiration and love for stars. That's why, but that's another topic of another day. So I've always just felt like kids have this potential to become the best at what they dream about, and then the idea of becoming stars at that field. And so stars, that's how the stars come into the name. But my home stars, I think for me, it was looking at, can I say, the schools I went to, the environments I've been exposed to, most of the students I've met and friends I've met, most of them have like better backgrounds to do than refugee camps, if I can put it that way, and they have a better support system. And then when I looked at where I come from, we don't have that. Schools are not in a great shape. We don't have great libraries and all that. But at the end of the day, I've always believed that these children, even though they come from refugee camp, rural communities, they also have the potential. And so for me, it was relating to the understanding that yes, kids in America are stars, yes, kids in South Africa are stars, yes, kids in Kampala are stars, but kids from my backgrounds too are stars. And that's how I was like, my home stars. I've always regarded Kangware to be my home, to be honest. Uganda is my home, but I think there's a special place in my heart for Kangware, like the refugee camp I grew up in.
Right.
I love that place. And so I think that's why I was like my home star. So for me, I have this like just strong love for those kids where I come from, and just like feeling like they have the potential to do big things, to achieve their dreams. And so that's how the name came about, My Home Stars. It's sort of personal, if I can put it that way.
I feel like
that's how the name came about.
It is because it just gave, I don't know, I might be weird or might be, but it just gave me goosebumps when you explained that, because I think I feel it. Like I feel it in my heart. Like I feel when you talk about it, because it's the same heart I have. I didn't grow up in a refugee camp, but I look at just kids from my village, just kids from Uganda whenever I go. And that's kind of the heart I have. I think for you, it's very special because the kids in the refugee camp, they all like have different stories, different background. And it's not like for us, we had homes, like we had parents, we had somewhere, but like living in a camp is a totally different story. And like for you to explain it and looking at those kids not as refugees but as stars, like it's a big deal. Like if you don't get goosebumps listening to that, I don't know what your heart feels. But I'm glad that there's a person who believes in those kids, and I think some of those kids just need somebody who believes in them, somebody who believes in their dreams, that they are possible.
No, I'm glad you're saying that. And I think it's something I didn't emphasize much. One of the things I'm really grateful for, or I think I've been fortunate at, is both of my parents never went to school, but they've been big believers in, can I say, education or having their children educated. And I think that really made a huge difference, because like in the refugee camp, you find that most families, their parents never went to school. And that can create a big gap if the parents don't, like, can I say, encourage and motivate their children to go to school. And so from the point you talked about, I think these kids, more than anything, they need someone. We may not need like big libraries and big computer libraries and all that, but I think having someone who believes in you, or a group of people who believe in you, I think makes a huge difference. And for me, it's been my parents, and then having siblings ahead of me who I can look up to. And when kids lose that in the refugee camp, or even in other communities, by the way, it becomes a big problem. And so I'm glad you're able to point that out.
No offense to all the guests I've had on this podcast, but I feel like this is one of my best conversation and topics that I've ever had on the podcast, because I don't think I've ever had a guest that speaks to my heart, or like talk about something that really I'm passionate about, like something, every hint that we talk about just hits home to me. Because when I talked about somebody to believe in you, it reminded me, I spoke that out of experience, because when I finished high school, I wanted to do aviation, and my dad could not even afford to take me to the primary school that I went to. They would send me home every day for school fees. And when I finished Form 6, I wanted to go to Sarochi Aviation School, even to try that, but my dad couldn't even afford that. So I ended up being just collecting money from parking lots for like cars at night. And somebody, my uncle that I told you, who stayed in the US, he gave me the job, and he asked me about my dream, what I want to do. And I told him my story. And from that point, he believed in me. He said, I want to help you make your dream possible. And that's turned my life around. Like you said, it was your parents for you. For me, my parents did a good job raising me and helping me through education. But at that point, my uncle came through for me, that he helped me get started in the US. And when he got me to the point where I can take care of myself, I was, I think now you're in good hands. You can take care of yourself. And today that's happening. And that's why I said it.
And when I say honestly, my parents, it's not just like my parents. I like the fact that you are bringing in your uncle, because talk about like my school fees and all that. So it's been people believing in me. When I finished my senior 4, it's another story. But like we owed, the school was demanding us like about 1.4 million Ugandan shillings. That's
Wow.
not a lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
My family couldn't afford. And there was like this school administration, so it's like a principal. And actually, when you're going to register for your NEB at the national exam, senior 4, you can't register before you pay the school
That's
fees.
correct.
And so the school bursar was like, you've got to pay this money. And I was like on the wall, like it was a tough time. I don't want to go in depth with that. But like this guy ended up, I was doing well in school. So I was like, no, we can't deny this guy to register or giving him even a hard time. Like these are last days, he needs to prepare for the national exam. And this guy ended up scrapping off the dues that I had. And he's since then been like my good friend. And even right now I stay in touch. And that to me is like someone really believing in you. Like he was like, you're doing well in school and we know you're going to do well in national exam. And there was no need for them like to continue stress me. And to be honest, it's one of the things I'm very grateful for. Like someone saying like, you're doing well, we can forget about this money you owe us and you continue the education. And you've got to have those people,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, most definitely. And yeah, like we said, most of the kids back home, and some of them are still in the same situation we were in when growing up, and those kids still need us. And that's why I'm so happy that I was going through your Instagram and I saw you trying to raise money to help the kids back home. How was that like? How's that? I mean, I've done some things like that too to help kids go back to school. How was your experience like with that?
Yeah, so that's, I think you're talking about the GoFundMe campaign.
Yeah, the GoFundMe campaign.
Right now we've done the GoFundMe campaign, and then we also did like the Give.Asia. A friend of mine came through and then ran another GoFundMe for us. So that's in 2020. The pandemic had sort of come at the end of 2019, and then 2020 things became crazy. Schools closed in Uganda, and then obviously in the refugee camp, there's no way you're going to say online learning. Kids had to go home and nowhere for them to continue learning. And so by then I was already like, I had established my home stars and the idea of using games for children to learn. And then some teachers in the refugee camp already knew about the program of my home stars that we're doing. And so some of them reached out asking if there was a way to package the game. The game is called the 5 Stars. It's the main game that we've been using to help children learn in Uganda. Please check it out if you can on our website, if you can. Anyway, so we ended up figuring out that we could package the 5 Stars educational game that would help children learn, continue learning within homes. But then, of course, being a student, I didn't have the money. So I was like, there's nothing I can do at this point without money. And then my elder brother, I ended up talking to him. And then somehow in the conversation, we ended up talking about the a GoFundMe campaign. It's like, what if like I ran a GoFundMe campaign and asked people for support? And then I end up talking to my colleague, Anson Lia, who is like a product engineer in my home stars, my teammate. And he was on board. He was like, yeah, we can run a GoFundMe campaign and then see how it goes. The interesting part was at first we wanted to raise 5,000, which was still like a lot of money, to be honest. Asking people, you're giving them nothing, like, hey, I want 5,000 US dollars and trust me with your money and I'll make use of it at my age. But we ended up arranging the campaign and then sort of launched it out 5,000. And then the next day, something happened. Like, I was like, I think also it's like talking to my brother and then him. So my brother also is very passionate about education. And of course, he grew up in the refugee camp. But I think at some point he asked me a question, is like, do you understand how many children are out of school? And 5,000, what would that do? And stuff like that. And I think I was already scared that we're asking for 5,000, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so pushing me to do more was not even something I was going to just say, yes, let's do it. But I think I struggled with that like over the night after launching the campaign, and we ended up changing the campaign to 10,000. So we doubled the money. I actually went to the campaign, changed it, and then told my colleague Anson, I'm like, hey, I changed the campaign to 10,000. I think we can raise this money. For some reason, Anson is like one of the best teammates I've had. he's very understanding. If you give him a reason as to why you're doing something, he's on board. I guess like he's a positive person. That's one thing I love about him. So I told him, I'm like, yo, dude, like, look, I know we are putting our names online that we are raising this money. We are not on ground to also run these things, but I think there is a bigger need that we've got to address. So let's double this money. If we fail, yeah, it will suck because like you ran a GoFundMe campaign, didn't work. But what do we have to lose? Nothing. But if we raise this money, we could make a huge impact to these kids. And I think it could really help them so much. And Anton was like, yeah, let's do it. And of course, we started reaching out to people. And fortunately, and one of the things I'm really grateful for, and it's like one of those things that are very humbling. People believed in us, and in 4 weeks, we had raised the money. It was sort of crazy. But it also came down to this idea of just like being determined, because we had to do a lot of work reaching out to people, writing things and posting and all that, and arranging how the production would happen and all that. But hands down, I was very, very grateful that people believed in the work we are doing and supported us. And that GoFundMe campaign really, I would say, has made the whole difference, because I think it showed us that things are possible, but also like just think kids like learning within homes and not entirely like having nothing to do in the refugee camp was really very, very, can I say, encouraging to us, and I guess to the kids as well.
Yeah. The reason why I asked you that, explain through the walk through your campaign, I know how hard it is to raise money on a GoFundMe page. And I've done a GoFundMe page before for myself, for my education when I came to the United States. Because like I said earlier, like I didn't have a sponsor. So when I went to my aviation school, we had to pay $23,000, I think. No, $25,000 in 1 year or something like that. And trying to put your name on the internet, put all your needs on the internet. At least here, you're kind of in the back for other. So like you're helping another kids, not you. But like it was at that time, it was me just putting it out there, and everybody is gonna read it. That's hard too. But also like raising money, I know how hard that is. But also to see your success, like how it came up, I wanted to know the story, and like people are generous, and like anything can happen. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And the other thing, forget about what I explained. That's the journey, but how it was happening, I don't have the mathematical formula to explain that. I don't like, dude, because like people who I don't know were donating 500, and people would send me notes that like, yo, dude, we love what you're doing and all this and all that, keep up the good work. And then Anson the next day would send me like a message from his friends who donated, and I'm like, how in the world would like a stranger believe in these kids, early 20s, doing this work in Uganda? They've never met these people. And to me, it never made sense, but like, it's also like this understanding that, still like a lot of good people and with good intentions, and yes, things can happen for sure. But how things happened, I didn't understand. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't understand, but things happen.
That reminds me of like I talked about my education, and when I did, some of the money I got for my education wasn't through GoFundMe, but I would be in class, and our registrar would come, "Hey, Bunny, you got a mail," and I'll go open the mail, and it has a letter, and it has a check in it. It's like, "Hey, Bunny, you don't know me, but I heard about your story somewhere, and I want to send this money to pay for your education." Like how? I got mails from like Seattle, Washington. I'm like, I've never been to Seattle. I don't know anybody in Seattle. But like how it happened, I don't know. But it did really happen.
Yeah, I remember like on the last day, because we had set out a campaign for a specific time, and I remember making this post. I'm like, I think we are like 60% towards the goal. And when I made like that post, I remember some people donating twice and then reaching out to their friends. And I think that's how we're able to exceed the goal, because we ended up raising like 12,600. And to me, it was just insane. Like someone donated, and then they are donating to us so that you can reach your goal. And I'm like, hey, you're joking, you're kidding me, But that's the power of human beings and believing in the goodness of people. I think for me, that's the biggest thing I've taken away. I think there's a lot of bad things happening in the world. And I guess also like human beings, you can say that we are capable of bad
Right.
things, but there's a lot of good things. And you come to learn that human beings are capable of amazing things, you know? So I guess it depends on how you see the world and then how you want to use yourself, I guess, to impact the world. But amazing things can happen.
I already applauded you in the beginning before even we talked about this. And even now that after we've talked about what you've been able to do, I just want to thank you for just standing in that place and being the hope of those kids in the refugee camp, because their lives are going to turn around. And you're now 24. You're going to be 50 and the kid will be like, oh yeah, Joe sent us some money back in the day, or like he did this and this, help me. And when they're telling their stories, they'll be mentioning your name. Like those are some of the things we do that people will remember you for the good things like you have done. But I don't want to skip my about the game, because I know you mentioned go to the website and talk about, but I want to talk about it. You still have time? I mean,
I've got a lot of time. I'm actually looking at the package. It's on
okay.
The show there.
Oh yeah, you
Yes,
can get it
go
if
ahead.
you can. You can get
Can I
it if
grab
you
it?
want. Yeah, you
Let's
can
do it.
grab it.
Once in a while, I just like showing people how it
Yeah.
looks like. But this is the package. So this is the game. I think I removed the game components are there, but
Okay.
this is how the entire package would look like. And then
yeah, so I wanted to ask you about the game. You kind of mentioned it when we were going to talk about how where you were raising the fans. So we grew up playing different games. Like, how did you get this idea of this game, and how do you think this game is going to be useful in schools? And I know you mentioned that in schools and in the community.
Right. Oh man, I love that question. Because I think some people that's the interesting part about this work I'm doing. It's not like I played millions of games or many games actually when I was growing up. The only card game I played was Matatu.
Matatu, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong, I don't know if your parents ever allowed you to play Matatu in
Nope,
their face.
they did
My
it.
parents never wanted to see me play Matatu. Why?
They
Because they
did it.
thought it was gambling. And actually, the more I grew up, I realized this game is not gambling. Unless if you put money, you can just play for fun. But for some reason, parents in Uganda, in general, not everyone, think Matatu is gambling. Yet gambling really becomes gambling when you put money. Otherwise, you can play for fun. But
Right.
that's the only game I played. And why games? I think so. The idea of games came when I went to South Africa for my high school. By then, so ELA brings students from across the continent. Usually, there's like 2-3 students from every country. Apart from, I think West Africa usually has a lot of students. Like Nigeria has about like 6 every year, and even sometimes more. But these students, some of them were like board game, can I say experts or enthusiasts? So they loved board games. And every evening or whenever like students were free or had like time, they would bring out board games and then they would play board games. And to me, it was very fascinating, like seeing the reaction students had, seeing the fun they had. It didn't matter like whether like you were having a bad day when you got on the table to play the board game and you got that point right, your heart lit up and the smile was big. And so I think being around students who are playing board games once in a while sort of inspired me. But the other thing that was sort of a kicker that made things sort of make sense is that I played a lot of soccer when I was growing up. And one of the things that I realized when I was young was I was not like really, can I say, a very smart student like in primary school or anything. And so school was not very fun. Yes, my parents inspired me to go to school and I wanted to go to school. But let's be honest, like sitting in a classroom for 2 hours, listening to a math teacher talk about math, doing this, doing that, was not very fun for me. I like the concept that I can go to school, become an engineer, but the process was not as fun when I was young. So to me, going to school, what was fun was when they rang that bell at 10:30, break time, and then you had to go and play soccer handmade for 30 minutes, and then go to class again. At lunchtime, outside again for 1 hour, play football, play soccer for 1 hour with friends. It was very fun for me. So I went to school because I would get a chance to play with my friends. You know, in villages, we don't have lunch that you would open your bag and then eat. We didn't have lunch. And so the soccer was the lunch for me, it was the breakfast for me, and it was fun. And so looking at that, and when I related to like the friends who I went to school with, most of them loved playing games. I know ladies would play this game whereby you throw balls and then catch and then run around. It's called?
So Kwepena.
Kwepena, exactly. That's the game. I had even forgotten. But that was also fun for ladies. And so when I thought about this idea, I was like, what would it be like if we brought like games within classrooms rather than playing games during like the break time and lunchtime? What would it be like if we brought like the card game, the Kwepena, and these games that are fun into classroom? I didn't have an answer because I've never seen anyone do it. But for me, that was the motivation. I knew I loved school because of playing with my peers. I had seen what it is like seeing people play board games. And then I was like, what would it be like? And is it possible? And in my head, I'm like, I think it's possible. Or if it's not possible, let's try and then see how it goes. It was my first board game that I developed, but I just believed that the concept had the power to really make school fun and engaging for children. And so what we've done with the 5 stars is we've broken down the learning content that's covered in primary school. So the math, the science, the social studies, and then the English into cards that kids can be able to use in classroom with teachers and then be able to learn at the same time. And usually the 5 stars, when people hear about it, they think it's one game, but it's actually a series of games. So think about P4 having 4 games. They have math, English, science, and social studies. P5, that. So it's like 16 games in one. And I think that's the one thing I guess, I mean, I'm the one who developed it and my colleagues, so I guess I still have it. But that's one thing I love about the game. So kids in P5 can pick up the games for P4 and then have fun with it. Kids in P7 can play all these games and then have fun with them, which is also something that's typical in the Ugandan education curriculum. When you're doing your national exam, they test you from P4. So that's one of the things that we've been encouraging teachers to be like, hey, make sure that your students actually utilizing the games in the lower classes such that it's fun for them, but also they are revising, if I can put it that way. But in a nutshell, that's what sort of inspired me. The idea that you could use games, bring smiles to the faces of children, make them forget that they are running the math, they are running the social studies, and think that they are playing another card game or another weapon and just in the classroom.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I'm glad you thought about that, because now you think about it, like the way we learned was our teacher just forcing it in your head. Oh, you're gonna get this. You're gonna get this. Just like pounding, like forcing it.
And not cut you short, but by like 2 p.m. I would check out. Like you'd find me, I'm just not in the mood of learning. And yet this teacher wants you to learn, in a good way. But I just like, I'm a kid, dude. Like I'm out,
But it's more fun to learn through fun, like,
absolutely,
through not like super, I mean, you have to be serious to learn, but like through a game that is teaching you, like you mix fun and learning. Work without play, makes Tom and Dal boy, but like if you mix those two, just fun. So that's really cool. Like I might actually, I don't know, like how do you ship those games to Uganda? Like how do you send them to Uganda, or do they make them in Uganda?
We are making them from Uganda. We are not shipping. It's been the toughest part, to be honest, actually figuring out production, or even this package from Uganda. So we've been able to make them. It's costly and it's something we're trying to figure out, but we make them from Uganda.
Yeah, that's a good idea actually, because if you made them in the US, trying to get them to Uganda, then that would be super more extra. So it's good that you're doing it in Uganda, and I'm sure doing it in Uganda provides people with jobs, people who make them, and changing people's lives. I know you have a big team too that's giving people stuff to do and helping like grow. So you're actually doing a big thing. Like you're one of the people that are gonna change the world. Like change the country, change Uganda.
I don't know. I don't
Silence.
know,
Like,
but that's a big word.
Yeah.
In my head, I've always been like, even if I can make like one or two kids, just believe in themselves, or just understand that it's not the background. It's just like having that dream and then doing your level best, doing the small things, and someday, it's like the world just meets you somewhere in the middle to help you achieve that. I think if you can have one or two kids honestly believe in themselves, I'll be so proud. I'll be so happy. I don't have to change the whole of Uganda, but one or two kids, and maybe they also share their story. To me, that's everything, man. Like it will make me so happy.
That's amazing, bro. That's amazing. And I mean, I knew just a little bit about you, and just sitting down here to talk. And I know we might have not talked through everything because of time, because of because if we sit here and talk for 2 hours, people are not gonna listen to us, or like they might listen through like till the first hour, and then. But I want them to at least digest this, and then maybe I can get you a second time if I get more questions. I'm like, hey, Joe, come back, let's finish this part two. Or like, even if you have something, like even if you have an idea, like, hey, Bunny, do you want to talk about this in the podcast? Because that's the same thing why I said the podcast. I didn't study for showbiz. I don't make money off this. I don't monetize. This is a hobby for me. And I want, whenever I record a episode, I send it like, hey, pass it on to somebody to listen to this person's story. Pass it on to this person to listen to. So it's a hobby for me. It's my sacrifice too, because both of us would have been doing something different in this time. I would have been playing video games right now, but I want to sit down and just listen to a story, and I know somebody will sit back there and listen to what Joe is doing. It could inspire somebody. And someone's like, oh, I could do something too. I could do something to help my community. He might not create a game, but he might do something that is beneficial to their community. Just like you knew that the game is going to be beneficial to your community and to your country and to the schools. And with me going through the same school system, I have to tell you, like, that's a perfect way to go about it. And I'm sure like that's gonna be helpful. And when you say 102, I mean, it's going to be more than that for sure, but that's where, is there I mean, there's a lot of things, like I was going to ask you, like, is there anything I've not asked you that you want to talk about? There's a lot of things I've not asked, so I won't even let you answer that question. I'll just cut you short right away, and just say, I appreciate you. Just a few questions that I ask people I host on a podcast. I mean, I'll go ahead and ask you, like, is there something you want to talk about that I've not asked you, just a little bit, if there's anything?
No, I think, I mean, like, as you said, we can go ahead, but I think this was really good. I guess now I have something. I'm just like thinking, I think you mentioned about it, like for us, some of us who have been sort of privileged, who are in the space of privilege of, can I say, being in a space like the US, having the opportunity to go to school. I think we need to really be thinking about our communities more often, think about that community where you come from, think about, it could be something you can do. I've always believed that you don't have to know exactly or have the best skills in the world to change something or do something. So I would say for most of us who are in the position of privilege, we need to continue to think about our communities and what can we do right now that you may not have 100% skills, but you can make a difference better than the person who's on the ground. I don't know if that makes sense. Because like I personally don't have skills to be, can I say, I call myself a CEO and the founder on my profile, but I didn't go to school to do this thing, but I've always believed that I can run a small organization. I've not gone to school to run board games, but I've always believed that I'm a little bit creative and I can create something that can make an impact to children. And I think for most majority, like 99% of us who are like in the US and have left our communities, we have that, can I say, advantage of, can I say, being creative and being problem solvers, or even like being people who can bring hope in this community. And so we need to be thinking more often. It can be something small, but it makes a big difference. And so we need to be thinking about our communities more often and then giving back once in a while for sure.
I think one of the things I'm going to have to do is have to meet you in person because I want to sit down with you and just learn from your wisdom. And I mean, I appreciate just sitting down here and just listening to your words and just learn. I'll never stop learning. I like to learn from people and what they're able to do. And like I said in the beginning, like I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of how you presented your home stars to the United States, and that's something I keep teaching myself. Like, don't get lost, don't get yourself lost into the American dream and like just think about yourself, but remember where you come from and like you're gonna lend that hand to somebody to be there.
No, I like the way you put it, man. That's exactly what I'm talking about. There's amazing things how you can chase this American dream, but we've got people at home who need us, so we shouldn't forget about that. Yeah,
for sure. What gets you excited about life?
About life? It's I think this is for my dad. My dad actually passed away in June.
Sorry about
that. Last year. But I think he's one of the most optimistic people I've ever met, or I've been around. But it's what excites me about the future is just like the idea or the belief or the hope that tomorrow will be better than today. I think just excites me. It gets me moving. Like when things are going well today, I'm like, tomorrow will even be better. If things are going bad, I know tomorrow will be better. So it's what excites me about the future, or about tomorrow, if I can say. Just the hope that tomorrow is going to be better than today. It keeps me going.
So I don't think you could have said it any better than that. And I would like to tell you, like, to be honest, not because you're in my podcast, but I'm gonna say this is the best conversation I've had on my podcast. Just the way it flows. This is the best unprepared conversation I've had on my podcast ever since I started. I've been doing this for like a year and a half, but every time I come with questions, I'm ready to know what I'm gonna ask. But everything I've asked you was just from the head. I mean, I looked up like the website to kind of just know what I'm talking about, but it flowed very well. And I enjoyed having you here. I enjoyed talking to you and listening to what you have done. And I think I'm going to have to bring you back someday to just talk about anything. And there's a lot of things we have in common. And just to thank you for the kids, on behalf of the kids who you've helped, because I know how it feels to have nothing and to have somebody to represent. So I want to thank you for the kids in Hoima and the kids that you're helping. So the last question, who would you like to see on my podcast next? And you're going to help me find the person to come to the podcast.
This is on spot, and I wow. Do you have like a geographic preference, or what kind of?
They can come from any country. Like I've had friends from Costa Rica talk about different things. Like some of them talked about like their experience in the States. I've had my podcast is open to like anything. Whatever they do, wherever they live. It could be a friend from your school. It could be one of your team. Actually, it would be cool to get one of the people from your team actually who are in Uganda, like to kind of follow up to how this is changing. Actually, that would be cool. That would be a good idea if we can plan that. Or like even, I don't know, but I don't have to put in your head anything. You can just...
Now I'm thinking like, should I give you a teacher actually? I think kids are a little bit, I don't know if kids will stand but
a teacher would be nice actually.
A teacher would be very nice. Let me see. I would recommend like one of the teachers, like because like we don't get to hear from them often,
right?
So I think a teacher would really be good to even like learn about. When it's like
we could actually do it. We could actually do it, three of us. You know, we could get a time. You could be there on the panel, and then we kind of just have a...
yeah, it would be good to like even like hear the perspective of
Mm-hmm.
learning in the refugee camp from the teacher. So I
Yeah.
would recommend a teacher. I have to think about the teacher though,
Okay.
because like I
No,
have very many teachers who are like
yeah.
good. So I don't say like yesterday I had this teacher. He's from South Sudan, but he's a teacher in the refugee camp. And he was sending me pictures of kids using the game. And actually, we just partnered with their school this year. I was in Uganda in December running workshops, and we partnered with their school. And this guy is just like, I feel like he's more passionate than I am. Like, he's always just like giving kids like the games and running the games and then sending me pictures. And I'm like, wow. So it, for example, would be great to have like such a teacher and even like learn about his story, because like
Right.
I know him a little bit, but I don't know much about his story.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think if you can give me time, his name is
Yeah.
Okelo. So right now I
Yeah.
can recommend Okelo, but I will look into the group and then see
Yeah.
the
Most
teacher.
definitely.
So teacher would be great for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I'll give you time, and I know it's kind of on a spot question.
Yeah.
I like it too, but that's how. Actually, that's a tricky question. Not a tricky question, but like that's a question that helps my podcast grow. So like I get to know more people. Like you plan on your next guest by the guest you bring. Like I met Joel. Joel's gonna help me meet Okello. Okello is gonna help me meet. So that's how kind of keep it alive and keep it going. So it's a question that helps my podcast grow and getting to know more stories, because I don't know a lot of, I mean, I know a lot of people, but like the more you get more people, the more you meet more people, you know what I'm saying? But,
and I think that's a good strategy, to be honest.
But yeah, Joel, I don't know how many times I've said on the podcast, but I've had a good time. I've had a good time just learning more about you. I know we're friends on Instagram. We just look at each other's pictures and just go by, but just sitting down to kind of know somebody's life, I like that. And I'm praying like I get to meet you in person. I get to go to Uganda or meet you in Uganda on one of your workshops and just come and see what you do. So maybe that's something we'll be in the future. So cool. we can try to plan to be in Uganda at the same time. And but also like in the US, I mean, Wisconsin's like 5 hours away, 5 or 8, I don't know, from here. But yeah, we could plan on something, meeting up and getting.
Yeah. And I know you've thanked me now, but I also want to thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I obviously don't get an opportunity to like meet people, especially from Uganda, and people like you actually host. I think this is my first Ugandan podcast. I've had like a few episodes so far on people wanting to know about my work, but most of them are like Americans actually, and so it means a lot. And I think that's why I wanted to do this, like meeting someone from Uganda, because like the conversation doesn't flow the same. When I mention something and you can relate,
right,
like that's why you will get the goosebump. But like for an American, when I mention something, it's very hard to relate, and so it's just like questions and answers. And so that's why I really enjoy this. It's a conversation you can relate and all that. And again, been like helping me continue to share the work that we are doing. It really means a lot. And so thank you so much for the work you're doing, and keep up the good work. I know it's not easy. I know what it means. I know when the episode is out, people are like, "Oh, this is good. This is easy." But I know the background work.
Especially with a full-time job and like having to record this. But yeah, if you don't mind, I'll share the website of the game in the description. I'll share your contacts, and if anybody listening wants to get in touch with you, I'll share that, and they can, if they want to know more about the game, they want to know what you do, or even support. Like I have some people who listen to my podcast that are really passionate about supporting, giving a hand in any way. So I'll share that information. So yeah, so Joel,
thank you so much, man.
Thank you very much.
Hey there, I am Bonnie Kibuka, the host of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Thanks for watching my video, and don't forget to hit subscribe and share with a friend. Tune in every Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time for a new episode about my podcast. And for more information about this podcast, follow me on my Instagram page, talk_show_256.